You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis show, and is brought to you by the candid sponsorship of MTN. Everywhere you go, welcome to the new world. Lipton tea, inspiration flowing from nature. Sasso insecticide mosquito spray, we say kum entuntum preko. And Erata Motors is also proud to be associated with this show, asking three important questions this morning. What's the big deal with the EPAs, and why should President John Dramani Mahama's Ecowas not sign it? Dr. Indum's PPP is in the Supreme Court. Is it there to shoot down NDC's Master Stroke 2016 free HSS campaign? Poor Ghana to pay $12 million to Balkan Energy, snide at our Supreme Court and sovereignty, yet fair deal? Simple questions, very intricate answers to them. And I want to welcome my guest to the studio. Abdul Malik Kweku Baku Jr. is a regular panelist. He is the editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Abraham Amaliba is a lawyer, he's a lecturer, and is with the NDC's legal team. The Honorable Abdul Rashid Pelpour is Minister of State at the Presidency for Private Sector Development and Public-Private Sector, Public-Private Partnerships. That's the PPPs. And he's also the MP for Wa Central. The Honorable Ayikwe Otu, former Attorney General and Minister of Justice. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome to Newsfile.
Thank you.
If we are lucky, we'll get Dr. Yao Graham, an economist with the Third World Network, to speak to on the phone, particularly with the EPAs. You know that they are part of a coalition that has been campaigning against the signing of the EPAs. And he made a statement that President John Mahama should sign the EPA and kiss goodbye to his vision, particularly at a time when he's talking a lot about made in Ghana. What's the big deal? We'll find out. So your messages are welcome. 1422, that's a text line, 1422. Send them to us. We'll share them with the rest of the world. You can also send directly your message to newsfile@myjoyonline.com or post your comments on our Facebook wall. If you have questions, let us have them as well. Now, straight away, we go to the issue of the EPAs. And you would know that the Ecowas just returned from a meeting at which they were supposed to sign the EPAs. Unfortunately, that could not materialize. And we understand that Nigeria was a major reason why the EPAs were not signed. I'd like to start first with Mr. Pelpour. Mr. Pelpour, for those of us who are watching and listening and who do not have a better, simplified understanding of what the EPAs represent, can you just attempt to give us, a brief, easy to understand what the EPAs represent and what we stand to gain after all?
Well, thank you and good morning to our viewers and listeners. The EPA agreements with ECOWAS, the EPA, for example, to start with, means Economic Partnership Agreement.
Right.
And ECOWAS is the Economic Community of West Africa. Now, these are two blocks, and the EPA is signed with the EU. The EU is a group, a block.
The European Union.
The European Union. ECOWAS is a block, So the attempt to agree between themselves as to how trade transactions should occur between them, and that there will be some basic agreements as to the trading that occurs in exchange, the exchanges that occur, and what preferential treatments each of them can give to each other. And so the EPA for us, ECOWAS, to them means that they are providing to ECOWAS some corridor of access to European goods and services.
Right.
And access also to Africa from the European community, from the EU. And so they will give us preferential treatment in how we sell to them and in how they sell to us.
In exchange for? You said they will give us preferential treatment.
Yes.
Of course, there's something to benefit
yes.
when they do that.
Yes.
What are they supposed to benefit?
You know, it is what they call the most favored nation agreement. They will make you the most favored in situations where they have to deal with a nation and provide some services. I mean, some agreements that would not put a burden on the supplier. They would normally give preference to the ECOWAS nations. So that preference means that we will have easy access to their market in the sale of goods to them and services to them. The other side of it is a very relevant question you ask. What is it that they are going to get out of it? Is what the issue is. If we implement this trade agreement fully, ECOWAS is going to lose, there's going to be a burden of 15 billion euros to implement the whole program. The European Union is willing to pay only 6.5 billion euros. The rest of it will be paid by ECOWAS. Now, there is also a duty-free aspect of it, portfolio of it, which the European Union is going to gain, meaning that they can bring in their goods and services duty-free for specific goods, and we will be losing so much as part of the agreement. And as a result, we are representing it and asking for renegotiation about it. There's going to be more than 60% trade liberalization of the ECOWAS market for the Europeans.
They want 100%.
They want 100%.
Okay.
They want, there's an existing 60%. They want it to go beyond that.
And
100%.
we are offering 75 so far, is it?
I think that from the 60, I haven't heard them offer beyond the 60 so far. It is part of the negotiation.
Yeah, the last time I checked, I think it was 75%.
75%.
Yes, that's what's been offered.
And that's actually the point of argument. ECOWAS is not still united in the 75. Some are still insisting, including Ghana, that, look, let's stay with the 60%. We won't go beyond that. So
would return, we interrogate subsequently or very soon whether it is really the case, as you include Ghana in the League of Nations that have issues with signing onto the EPAs and how much, room should be offered. So just hold it briefly there. Abi, what's your understanding of the whole EPAs simplified for everyone who is listening and watching to appreciate and follow? What is in for us and what is in for the EU?
Simply put, it is a way of allowing goods from EU into our economies free of charge, without tax. And then also allowing us to send our goods to their countries without also tax component or free of tax. Now, the issue is whether as developing countries will be able to meet their specifications in terms of our ability to produce goods that meet their needs.
Right.
Now, the other concern has to do with the fact that if they are made to bring in goods into our economies, what becomes of our industrial sector? And I'm sure that is what the civil society organizations are concerned about. And Nigeria rightly raised the concern at the summit, indicating that this would affect their industrial sector. And as a result, that, for me, was the reason why the agreement was not signed. So, you look at it, it appears from where I sit, the EU stands to benefit more than the West African economies. And so some countries like Nigeria, but already Ghana has a minimum, and Ghana and Ivory Coast has a minimum agreement with the EU where our cocoa goes there with our charges. So it's basically to allow for goods to come from EU into our markets freely, and we also sending our goods to them freely. But when you look at the details, it appears it is skewed in favor of the EU.
Mr. Ekotu, what do you say about EPAs? What are they?
Well, from the name, Economic Partnership Agreement, one can understand that we are talking about agreements.
Right.
So when you want to go into agreements, I mean, you are looking at a win-win situation. Now, the issue here is whether we are equally weighed so as to enter into that kind of economic partnership when one bloc appears to be far, far way ahead in terms of development and ability to manufacture and to produce goods. What is it that we produce? Are we primary producers of agricultural products only? Or we also have that much that we can also hope to export into their country? So it seems to me that once it is an agreement, then the parties must have to meet, look at the advantages that would accrue to each other. And if from the look of things and having regard to their advisors, they think that it would not augur well for them, once we've left the era of slavery, where nobody can come and hold a gun to our heads and force us to sign anything, we should now be free enough to use our best endeavors, use our own intellectual capabilities, abilities of analyzing the agreement, and to advise ourselves whether it is the best option. Unfortunately, we have this kind of bilateral agreements also, where like somebody comes to tell you, oh, why don't you allow our goods to come into your country at this rate, tariffs free, blah, blah, blah. And we sign on to some of these things. So while we have bilateral agreements, we are now dealing with multilateral ones involving how many countries in West Africa? Is it 16 or 17 countries coming together now and thinking as a bloc? So the issue is, do we forego those bilateral agreements that we have entered and then go on as a bloc? Because after all, in unity lies strength.
Right. Okay, and obviously that is what now the ECOWAS is pursuing. Now, Abdul Malik, do you find that we have sufficient commonsensical explanation to an otherwise complicated deal?
Based on what has been said here,
right.
I think so. I believe that our viewers and listeners may have been able to, get a drift of what this whole thing is about. As you said, complicated indeed, especially because there's a certain dosage of emotions, sentimentalism, nationalism, all coming together and driving the negotiations as well as the discussions. And I think that's making it very difficult for various governments to look at it. But in Ghana's case, I'm sure you'd lead us on to the broader scope, because the whole thing involves the ACP countries, African, Caribbean, and Pacific countries. Here, the focus, of course, is on ECOWAS. But Ghana, indeed, as Amalba hinted, in December 2007, signed onto the interim EPA,
right,
which more or less give 80% of European goods
access to our markets.
Yes, duty-free, quota-free onto our market. And we were giving 100%, except that rice and sugar and other items were exempted, So the question to ask is this. As we speak, I'm told only 4 African countries. Is it Mauritius, Madagascar, Zimbabwe, have finalized theirs.
All right.
Ghana and Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast has even signed on now. So Ghana is left in between. The issue really is the implications, impact assessment ought to be done. I'm not an expert, and I really would not pretend to understand the subject matter. But if we don't sign, what is the alternative? if we can formulate an alternative that we think would amount to a rescue package for our economy, is fair deal. But I think that we may have to go in between. So I think it is a question of what kind of package eventually comes out, because the effect, I'm told, that it may have on our industrialization, agriculture, government revenues, unemployment, these are key areas that if there's an agreement that is going to have a negative impact, then we ought to set up as a people. But I agree with Mr. Ayikutu. It is the collective base. If we go as individual countries, I'm not too sure we'll get the best of deals. But if we go as united, this brings back, of course, Nkrumah's philosophy, then we may be able to do some serious bargaining. Otherwise, this is a huge challenge for various governments in the sub-region.
Your views, comments, questions, particularly for this moment on the EPAs, welcome. 1422, there's a text line. You can post your comments on our Facebook wall or send them directly to newsfile@myjoyonline.com. Mr. Purpo, you certainly are aware of a certain grouping, the civil society organization pressure and campaign against Ghana signing onto the EPAs. The president may have said some time ago that he didn't believe that the EPA signing onto it would be any injurious to the country in any way. Yet we have these specialized groups, the Third World Network, we have the TUC, we have even the Christian Council of Ghana, all coming in to say, don't sign. Dr. Yao Graham of the Third World Network says that if the president signs it, he is kissing his vision goodbye. How do you understand all that?
Well, first of all, we need to agree the context within which these oppositions are coming from.
Right.
ECOWAS is a bloc, it's an economic bloc, and with an objective of one day collapsing our markets into one and getting the benefits of trade amongst us, and also negotiation as a single bloc and getting the benefit of being treated not as a single state, but as a group. Now, but with the present situation where 3 ECOWAS countries have moved from the least development country status to a middle-level economic status, we are compelled to see the 3 as different from the LDCs and getting them to sign the agreement differently. That's how come Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana, are being pressurized. Cote d'Ivoire signed the agreement, but that is an interim agreement. We will have to finalize the agreement for them to finally append, so they haven't fully signed. Ghana has not fully signed. Nigeria has been belligerent. So if they sign into the agreement, we have fragmented ECOWAS. You will have one side of ECOWAS signing a different agreement, another side signing another agreement. You will also have others being pressured to sign against the will of the collective. And in that sense, ECOWAS is not going to be will not have a united approach to it. But beyond that is the fact that the moment you sign that agreement, you are saying that you cannot prefer any other trade agreements beyond the EU. Once you sign with the EU and you later on prefer another agreement with another country, you are simply saying that you are going to take along EU. EU becomes an automatic member of ECOWAS.
Back to my specific question.
Yes.
And let me bring to you some of, call it summary, of the concerns as put out by the Third World Network, the TUC, the Christian Council, the Chamber of Commerce, and all the other groups that come together to make the coalition. They say that there are implications such as revenue loss, attack on domestic industry and domestic value addition, loss of policy space, constraints on South-South cooperation. The new ECOWAS EPA explicitly target the light manufacturing sector. I think that is important. It says it also commits the country to start within 6 months of the agreement being adopted, negotiations on deregulation of areas such as services, investment, government procurement, intellectual property, and capital accounts, none of which are required by any international rule or obligation undertaken by the government. Finally, that the cumulative effect of this agreement will be to take away from government that very range of policy instruments that are needed to redress the multiple challenges that the country faced at this critical time of its economic life.
But what else could they have been signing about? They're signing about these things, and they have always signed about these things. The challenge is not because they are dealing with the light industry, they are dealing with the kinds of agreements that is going to go against us. It's because of the unequal relationship between us. It's because they are looking at us as sovereign, independent, organized groups, and who have the capacity to enter into trade agreements and be able to deal with each other using in these lights, so that each of us can have mutual benefits. But the fear is that we are a growing economy. We don't have the kind of industry and technical know-how to match up with them. And so the fear is, as soon as you sign that, you sign agreement, you sign away your destiny and fortunes. We are signing agreements on agriculture. Those who are agri-related are complaining. Those who are industry-related are complaining because there's a huge volume of imports that are going to come from Europe, and you cannot prevent them. They are going to ask for more liberalization and allow them to have this kind of influx into our markets. We cannot satisfy the huge volume of requirements of trade that we will have to export to Europe. So it becomes a challenge to us. And the fear is that more and more is going to dwindle the capacity of Ecowas to stand on its own and to be able to widen its market and be able to enjoy the full independence we will require, economic independence. So we are afraid that if we do this, it is true, there will be market access, there will be technical transfer of ideas, knowledge, and patents, and etc., etc. But how much capacity do we have to receive it and to make use of it?
These expert groups say, and listen, they say that the savings in revenue that our countries can make by not signing the EPAs are about 3 times the cost.
It's because they are thinking of an alternative. You see, if you are thinking about an alternative to be given the liberal will to decide to sign on to any other agreements, then you can be thinking about savings. But if you are constrained, knowing that the biggest market you have outside ECOWAS is the EU in the world, and that you will have to find new friends, find new agreements that can satisfy the same kind of requirements we are thinking about. Just take note that in relating with sovereign states, in relating with blocs, each of them will relate to you because they want to have maximum benefit out of you. That is the definition of national interest and sovereign state interest. That in relating with you, you would want to gain maximum benefit in that relationship. EU will not relate to us hoping that ECOWAS will benefit more. Their citizens will hang them.
Right.
So we have our citizens, conscious citizens, who are also sounding to us that if we relate to them and will not benefit in the maximum way, don't relate to them. But they must provide an alternative, or else we will even be more constrained.
Mr. Aikoto, our economy is challenged. It's going through stress. And one of the major points that's been raised is that it still remains the colonial economy. How different is this from perpetuating the colonial economy?
You see, if these agreements are well structured, I believe we may gain some advantages from them better than allowing our goods to be sent on some commodity markets and for some people to decide how much they want to pay for them. In other words, if we can meet and get good prices for whatever we are able to export to those countries, at a rate where we do not have to pay so much in terms of tariffs, they are not going to put things there to make it impossible for you to enter into their markets, giving you so many conditions. Look at the bananas, just to export a banana. He said, some bananas become a big problem. Even when it comes to pineapples, they decide the type of pineapples they want. You just don't export anything to their markets and things like that. I'm saying that if we can, as a united front, work on our economy, try to get, some agreement such that it will be beneficial to both parties, then well and good. But with this, kind of David and Goliath relationship, where the European countries produce all the goods, manufacture all the goods, all they are looking for is some exports. They can't even, their markets are saturated. What is it that we manufacture which we want to send there? And the economy, as we said, the Goggisberg kind of economy, we need to change it until we are also able to manufacture and to produce goods. I mean, at the end of the day, they are primary products, more of agriculture and timber and whatever, cocoa, cashew, crops
we are going to give them access into our markets. They are going to bring paper rolls, paper cartons, textiles, insecticides, fungicides, disinfectants, corrugated roofing sheets, paving stones, blocks, tiles, roofing tiles, corks, lids, bottle tops, baby walkers, prams and similar things, towels, sanitary towels, nappies and similar products, garments and accessories for garments, fishing, fees, chemical waste, among others. I read this and I ask myself, are we really considering how the impact negatively can be if this agreement is signed?
I mean, it's so clear. Already, we only import. Why is our economy in trouble? We need more money to do our imports. And you're asking them to bring more when we want to also try and start our manufacturing base, said that we can also export. We haven't reached there. I mean, talk of the chicken. I mean, so you go to market and find Chinese chicken, and it's so cheap compared with what is manufactured here. Right. So if you allow all these things to come in, clearly our economy will suffer. I see it as a Goliath and David and Goliath kind of situation. We are not equal at all when it comes to manufacturing and exports. We are not yet there. I think we need more time. I thought the whole idea of Ecowas was regional integration. How best can we trade among ourselves to learn the ropes, be able to manufacture, trade among ourselves, and then we can go out there. But if we without having gotten the basis, we already go signing agreements with countries that have lived for years and been manufacturing for so many years, surely we are going to be the sufferers. I mean, do we produce? We used to have super paper products. Well, what has happened to it? And now our markets are already flooded by cheap toilet rolls from China. Right. And we are not able to compete. I think super paper product is even folding up. So what are we going to do to ourselves if we go along with this kind of agreement? I think that some of the issues being raised by our NGOs should have to be looked at.
Koku, it looks like it's a case of being between the devil and the deep blue sea.
Exactly. So what do we do? How do we go about it? As I said, we have enough brains in this part of the world to be able to interrogate the issues at stake. We need not go back into history and lament. There's an October 2014 deadline. Obviously, I don't see how feasible that deadline is. Against the backdrop that this has been going on for almost 11, 12 years in terms of the disagreements. So we have to take a decision. What happens to the October deadline? Can we meet it? or we can't meet it, both as individual nations and the sub-regional group. Because, there's still the option for individual nations to go ahead and sign. There is no obligation that it must be only ECOWAS. I think I'm clear on that point.
Right.
So we have to take a decision. If we don't meet the October deadline, what happens? Do we have in place some transitional measures, things that we can do? Because for the EU happens to be the largest export market of our goods, our produce. So we have to take a decision. What is it that we can do in the interim, in the transitional period, whilst we still interrogate the efficacy of the EPAs? I don't have the answers. I have to be honest with you. I don't have the competence to actually provide prescriptions. But I think we have people who can. And that's why government must listen to many of the civil society groups. Graham and his group, they are very good in those things. I've heard, frankly, Kujo. And in Manigana, they've also had some very beautiful articles on those things. We should look at some of those things and pick ideas from them. I believe beyond Ghana, there may be also such groups.
And talking about looking at those things and picking ideas from them, one of their problems is that there was a requirement on government to have a consultative forum. That did not happen. Yeah, and they feel that that is very bad.
Yeah, it's
on
a
the
deficit.
Part of
it's a serious deficit. I think it's not too late to cure that mischief, But clearly, whatever has to be done in the interim, immediately, should be thought out properly. But in the long term, we all know the solutions. We've been going over and over those solutions as to what kind of economic structure we need to build. Apart from the question of regional integration, the Ghanaian economy itself, what are the things to do, the value addition matters, which again comes back to development programs that leaderships can put in place. But to be honest with you, it's, as you said, between the devil and the deep blue sea. That's the situation in which we find ourselves.
Amy, when you hear the civil society groups in this emphatic manner, they say, don't sign. How do you react to that? They say, just don't sign it.
I'm of the view that they are seeing what probably most of us are not seeing in terms of the fact that it has negative consequences. You would want to look at the agreement as an agreement which is one that can be described as an agreement on equal partners. You want to look at the agreement as being one-sided. You want to look at the agreement as one in which one partner is ready and well prepared and the other partner is not. So when you put all this together, then one can understand why the EPA, the civil society organizations are crying wolf. But you see, I don't agree that it is a matter of being between the deep blue sea and the devil. Look, when ECOWAS was established in 1975, I think so, there was an objective. And the objective was simply to create a large common market of West African countries to facilitate trading in agricultural products and exchange manufactured goods. I want to ask a simple question. Within ourselves, have we been able to create that market? But you find the EU, they have been able to do that. They have created that market amongst themselves. They've been able to ensure that there's a free movement of goods, services, and investment within themselves. We, since 1975, have not been able to do that. So you see, you have two partners who are not equal when you present the two to the people of this continent, this sub-region. And so the fact is, let's get our houses prepared. Let's ensure that we first forge unity within the sub-region. Look, put together the whole of West Africa, the amount of market that is available to us, one has no idea. But we have failed to utilize that opportunity. And now we are going overseas and trying to create a large market. what is before you, you've not done. So I think that let's listen to, but I think the fear is that, like Oku said, if we do not go along with the sub-region, well, individual countries can hook up to it, and you will be seen as left behind, and it may have some backlashes in your economy, so that there will be agitations. They said, oh, you see, Ghana is not part of the EPA. That's why we are not getting certain goods and services. So I agree that we may be facing a difficult situation, but we brought it upon ourselves as citizens of ECOWAS.
Okay. Now, Mr. Pepper, what will you say when such civil society organizations are saying very emphatically, don't sign, and then you have exporters of non-traditional goods, is it, also say sign, and they are the ones who actually create jobs, but you hear groups like the Christian Council say, if you sign, you're going to cripple the economy which is already suffering. How do you come to the determination who to listen to and how to fine-tune, the process in such a way that it is mutually beneficial?
First of all, we have to understand what is happening in ECOWAS. ECOWAS is made up of heads of states. So you have heads of states meeting to take a decision at a very broad level. We haven't gone down to ECOWAS of the people yet. So the people are different from the decisions made up there. And that's the dichotomy. The
decision of the people is what is supposed to be carried by their heads or presidents to ECOWAS.
But that's not the case,
That certainly is the case. Else Nigeria would not have blocked the signing.
I'm saying that it's beginning to have an effect on the difference between what decisions are taken by heads of states and what the feeling of the people are. Now the feeling of the people down there is also confused. You have those who are in the practice of trade itself saying we will suffer even more because we can't now export. Even the small we have to export to Europe will be cut off and will be the poorest because we are not doing well. And the few that are exporting, you will just completely shatter them. So they are saying, go ahead and sign. You have the perspective of the NGOs, the
TUCs,
Chamber of Commerce, and all that, also saying, don't sign, because they are looking at the overall big picture of what is going to happen to the economy. So,
do you listen to the NGOs and so you say this imperial-oriented persons or groups get off?
Yeah. We have two perspectives. Those who are pursuing a very leftist agenda, and those who are pursuing ultra-right agenda, and even those who are in the middle. They all have their perspectives. But you see, this can be solved by a political decision, no longer trade decisions. We need to have ECOWAS go beyond trade negotiations. At the moment, we have the MMCs and their experts, the ministerial monitoring committees and their experts, who go to sit down and forge out the ideas. And the MMCs are saying, governments don't sign. We don't think that there's something good in it. And there's pressure also from our friends, from the NGOs, and who are telling us that this is bad. Now we need to go beyond that. And the supposition is that if by October we are unable to sign this agreement, there will be consequences. Let's measure the consequences against the reality of the fact that we are in the present regime, and exporting and being treated in a preferential way and giving the status of a preferred customer. Now, if you are not, and you have to pay all the tariffs, the small businesses in Ghana will collapse. We will have to get to a point when we have to agree and sign this agreement. We can't continue saying we won't sign and not giving reasons why we can't sign, and not also giving reasons why at one point we have to sign.
Okay.
There must be a point when we have to agree and sign this agreement, because we are in a situation where you don't have too much loud a voice. Because in a relationship where look, this agreement is also tied to aid. It's tied to technical assistance. is tied to political relationships and it's tied to trade. It's not just trade. So if your budget is not balancing and every time you depend on somebody to balance your budget, and you now say you won't sign the agreement with him, they'll pull out in that aid because it's tied to it. If they were giving technical assistance to your ministries, your departments, and even agencies and other non-governmental organizations, and you now say you won't sign, they'll pull out of it. And so, plus the trade agreements, which will allow you to have freedom of access to their market, and for them to also have freedom of access to our market. So it's a whole lot of complications that need to be sought out. That's why it's going beyond the fact that you should negotiate about trade to now negotiate about politics, the politics about it.
Okay.
And we are encouraging our presidents to sit down with them and now say, look, we've gotten to a point where there's a deadlock. Let's agree on this. And if they agree at the political level, it can come down and we can have this.
So the drift is that we are, in principle, ready to sign.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted that clarity.
Yes.
But the issue is this. He has drawn a distinction between when the heads of state meet and when the people of ECOWAS are supposed to also meet. The people of ECOWAS have not met yet. But we've heard, stories about some of the things that you, the heads of state, are about to do. And we are telling you or cautioning you that it will work. No, why don't we look at transparency? Why don't we look at the media? Why don't we throw it out there? Let us have sufficient discussion on this issue. Now we are all running some kind of democratic or parliamentary democracy. Can't it be discussed, for example, in Parliament?
It's been 5 years hence. It's been 5 years. 2007, we signed the interim agreement.
Yes.
We initiated it.
Yeah, we initiated it.
Yeah. And how many years? 5 years? Oh,
Yeah.
how many years? 7 years.
Well, but it tells you that then it is a difficult negotiations because people find difficulties with the way things are done. And when, especially as
it's a question of capacity.
We know the positions. They are entrenched positions. You are talking about the consultative process.
Exactly.
But we know the positions, entrenched ones. So what will the such discussions as you are saying bring? For example, when I listen to Dr. Graham, who has a lot to say about this, say, and I quote him, that a time comes when great leaders mark themselves out by taking difficult decisions. We hope that President Mahama, chairing ECOWAS in the coming period, seizes his opportunity of leaving his mark for the better, not only on Ghana, but West Africa, rather than be remembered as the leader under whose watch Ghana and the region of West Africa was sold out. Entrenched positions. What will these negotiations bring?
Well, you see, listening to him and he telling us that these EPAs are tied to aid and technical, assistance and budgetary, assistance and support and all that, that creates a rather, the deep sea issue that you raised earlier on, where you are between the devil and the deep blue sea. Because if you need assistance from these people and they are telling you if you don't sign, then we're going to withdraw those things. That creates a difficulty.
Right.
So what I'm calling for is time out for better and fuller appreciation of almost everything, so we could keep on talking until we are sure that we've reached a state. Because after all, if they had to withdraw, why haven't they withdrawn for the past 5 years? If they had to apply some sanctions, why haven't they applied them?
Right.
It means they are also listening. So to me, let's keep on talking until we are sure that whatever we are getting will be to the betterment of the people of ECOWAS and not the heads of states who are pushing anyway.
Heads of states who are pushing. Okay. Right. Just wanted to share a few of the thoughts with you. This one from Kwame Agoji. He says that the president for the past month has been lamenting, including a post on his Facebook wall about the insatiable appetite of Ghanaians for foreign goods and the need to patronize made in Ghana goods. And he's now considering signing the EPA agreement that will flood our markets with foreign imports what a shock. And Kojo Mensa Emisa says, contradiction everywhere. Albert Gardner says that Ecowas should not sign the EPA. Let's improve our economy to their level before we sign, so that there will be level playing field. That's a long way if it has to go in that manner. I suppose that we can proceed to the next issues that we have to discuss at this point. So definitely there's a need for a lot more consultation, whether or not people already have entrenched positions on this matter, before the heads of state return to look at the issue a second time. Thank you very much. Your comments and views are welcome. 1422, that's a text line, and you can also post them on our Facebook wall or send directly to newsfile@myjoyonline.com. And as always, this show is brought to you by the kindest sponsor.